Thank you, Madam Chairperson, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'd like to begin by thanking the organizers for having given me the honor to deliver the keynote address at this dialogue on building strong rule of law institutions and also launching the book, The Gambia in Transition Towards a New Constitutional Order, edited by Mr. Gaye Sowe, Dr. Satang Nabaneh, and Dr. Adem Abebe. I congratulate them from the onset for this excellent work, as well as to all the contributors. I'd like to thank also Professor Wiljoen for this wonderful gift he's just presented to me of this collection of essays in honor of George Kebambai, one of the foremost jurists that this continent has produced. Madam Bensler keeps on referring to me as Attorney General. For some of you who may not know, it goes back to our days when I was Attorney General, and she served as an excellent Solicitor General with me in the Aegis Chambers, service for which I remain immensely appreciative. I think she still thinks of those days. She keeps on calling me Attorney General. The year 2017 ushered in a change of government after some years of a difficult governance period. The reforms that followed the change were anchored on the strengthening of rule of law institutions, on truth-seeking and accountability, on constitutional reform, and the establishment and strengthening of independent and democratic institutions. While the transition was designed in many phases, we are pleased by the immense show of solidarity, of goodwill, and support towards the goals of the transition. It is clear that the attainment of a state of the rule of law and respect for human rights requires, amongst others, a very strong and durable constitutional framework and foundation that is able to rise to the demands of society, able to protect human rights through accountability and other measures, establish the legitimate authority of the state, as well as uphold the sovereignty of the people. For our part, on the side of the judiciary, we have been very attentive to the efforts that have been ongoing to prepare a new constitution for the Gambia as a framework for good governance for this country, hopefully for generations to come. Indeed, the judiciary, like many other entities and individuals in the country, has been an active participant in the process, preparing and submitting memoranda to the Constitutional Review Commission and holding consultations with it on matters within the mandate of the judiciary. For the Constitution is important to everybody, but more so to the judiciary itself. It is not only the source of establishment and mandate of the jurisdiction of the judicature, it is also, it seems to have gone off. It is also the source of authority of all other laws which are applied by the courts. It is the foundation of the rule of law and the foundation for human rights. The judiciary can, of course, then therefore cannot be indifferent to development of a new constitution. The 5-year judiciary strategic plan launched just over a year ago, in which AB Bensouda and Co. Had an important role to play. Just over a year ago, by His Excellency the President, provides us in the judiciary with the framework and the guidelines, the objectives and the activities which need to be undertaken in order to transform the judiciary and enhance its contribution to quality justice, and thus secure the foundations of good governance in the Gambia. And we believe some of the proposals of the draft constitution will be a valuable asset in this respect. It is in light of that background that this meeting is of great importance, a meeting that brings together various actors to reflect on the transitional justice mechanism, in particular justice and accountability institutions, and what we must do together to achieve not just the call for never again, but also how to create a better society for ourselves and posterity. A constitution, we all know, is the fundamental law. It is a legal document, but it's much more than that. It is a political statement of how a nation wishes to be governed, the values upon which the society should be based, the checks and balances by which the individual, as well as the wider public interests, are to be protected. It is what the lawyers will call the Grundnorm, borrowing from the Germans, I think. It is the fundamental law of the land from which all other laws derive their validity. The necessity for such a stable foundation cannot be exaggerated. A constitution must thus be as precise as legal documents need to be, yet it must be flexible enough to accommodate and respond to changing times if it is to survive for generations to come. Constitution making, of course, is a very difficult process, but fortunately we have had the experience already of making 3 constitutions in this country: the 1965 Independence Constitution, the 1970 Republican Constitution, and the current 1997 Constitution under which we operate. And we should be able to harness that experience as we seek to craft a new constitutional order. In recognition of the fact that the Gambia is no island, and I think just Professor Sen has alluded to this, the influence of the Gambia, the chapters in the book draw not only from the country's history and particularities, but also from the failures, the successes, experiences, and insights of sister countries from across Africa and beyond. In sum, the editors have produced an important and enriching addition to the existing scholarship on understanding Gambian constitutional and democratic governance and what could shape that tapestry beautifully. The issues covered and discussed will continue to inform conversation and dialogue in the country. The book also includes important analysis and discourse on the role of the media and civil society organizations, the estates that amplify the voices of the people, that serve as conduits between the governed and the governors, and hold duty bearers accountable for the oaths that they take to fulfill. I would like to compliment the editors and the authors for their excellent work and recommend to all Gambians, indeed to all persons, to read the book and engage in it. It is clear that the most ambitious post-independence constitutional re-engineering endeavor which we embarked upon recently has so far not heralded the Third Gambian Republic. But it certainly was not a wasted effort. Great work was done by the men and women in the CRC tasked to spearhead that re-engineering. Greater lessons also learned. It has afforded the Gambians the rare opportunity to experiment with a new way of doing constitutional politics, one centered on the sovereign people. The feelings, the experiences, insights, and proposals are likely to shape socio-political conversations in the years and decades to come. A new constitution may not have been adopted yet, but the flames for better governance have been lit by that conversation and will likely glow for the foreseeable future. The optimist in me says all is not lost. As I have also noted, the ultimate guarantee for good government reposes not just in the letter of the law, but in the will, in the commitment, and in the determination of the people and their leadership to tread the path of justice and fair play. We are fortunate that such a flame has been rekindled, and we should keep the flame alive. We also have to bear in mind that, of course, that flame is best protected and secured by a strong and adequate constitutional legal framework. It is not sufficient to simply rest on the will and the determination. That is very important, but an adequate constitutional legal framework will be necessary. We should not consider this to be the end of the road for the draft constitution. It is too important a project for us to abandon. We have already invested so much in it, only to discard it. We must revive the process, engage all the stakeholders in a national dialogue. But that dialogue must be a frank dialogue. We must be ready to listen to each other. That is what dialogue means. We must be ready to understand each other's concerns, know them, understand them, and then we must be ready to make compromises if we do want to achieve a new constitution. That is extremely important. The other thing that's important, I think, the stakeholders may be many, but the obvious ones in my mind, the National Assembly, the political parties, the government. Those are important stakeholders in moving forward on this issue. And then there must be some local facilitators, local independent, impartial facilitators who can bring all the parties together. But we must engage in this dialogue. I have made this call before, that we must pick up the ball again and move forward with it, so that at the end of the day, we can bequeath to the Gambian people a constitution which will last for generations to come. But it must be a result of a dialogue based on frankness, understanding, compromise. And in that way, we'll be able to move forward. The work of the TRRC has been a very important element of the transition program, also in respect of uncovering the truth and promoting reconciliation in our community. I would like to commend the chairman and the members of the TRRC for their excellent work, as well as the government for its acceptance of the Commission's recommendations, which call, among other things, for institutional reforms, for reparations,